Hi there, thanks for joining me. This is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative. And today's project is a unicorn and rainbow birthday card that I made for my niece Natalie's 11th birthday. She absolutely loves unicorns, and so I thought this was a great opportunity to make her a really blingy, glittery, crazy, rainbowy birthday card. So here's how I did it. I started out with a shipping tag and my mini distress inks. I used worn lipstick, spiced marmalade, squeezed lemonade, mowed lawn, chipped sapphire, and dusty concord, and I used them in that order to create the rainbow tag. I used my round mini blending tool, and I'm inking this up with worn lipstick, and I'm going from the craft sheet onto the shipping tag, and my intention was to create sort of a diagonal rainbow. So I'm going in a diagonal manner to ink up that upper right and get a really good layer of the worn lipstick down. And now I'm transitioning over to the spice marmalade. So again, I'm blending from the craft mat onto the tag, and I do overlap the worn lipstick just a little bit. And then I go back to the worn lipstick to sort of smooth out the transition between the two colors. And then I will go to the third color, which is squeezed lemonade. And same routine. I overlap the spiced marmalade a little bit with the squeezed lemonade, and then go back to the spiced marmalade and smooth out the blend. And then I go back a little bit to the squeezed lemonade and back and forth, and so on and so forth until I get through all the colors of the rainbow here. This is mowed lawn, and then I will do chipped sapphire. And finally, at the very end, I'm doing dusty concord, and that creates the really nice diagonal rainbow you see there. And then I used a mister and I sprayed some water into my hand and flicked it onto the tag to create droplets. And the droplets react with the distress ink and create lighter spots once the whole thing has dried. For my stamp set, I used the Avery L Be a Unicorn stamp set. And I am stamping the unicorn there with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. I knew I was going to color her with my Spectrum Noirs, and ink does a great job not reacting with the alcohol in those markers. So to color her in, I'm using my Spectrum Noirs, as I mentioned, and I wanted her body to basically look white. So I use a really light gray. This is IG1, and I'm coloring in almost all of her body, not the whole thing. But I'm coloring along the edges, and then now I'm using the next darkest shade, which is IG2, and I am sort of creating shaded areas along her mane, along her belly, along her legs, under her neck. And then I take the third darkest shade, which is IG4, and just go along those same areas, but in a thinner line to add some depth to those shadows. And I blend the dark color out a little bit with the IG2, and then I blend the whole thing out again with the IG1 to get sort of a smooth blend. And when it dries, it does look mostly like a white body with some shadowy areas, some shaded areas. Then I go to the hooves and the nose, and for that I use purple shades. So I start out with the lightest, which is LV1, and then I go to the next darkest, which is PL2, and following the same process, I'm creating like sort of shadows along the edges there. And then I take PL4, which is the darkest shade, and create a smaller shadow, and then I blend the whole thing out again with the LV1 to get sort of a smooth blend. And then I decided that, every unicorn needs a pink cheek. So I had to add a little pink cheek with the PP1, and I added some pink into her ear, and then I blended that out a little bit with the IG1. And now for her tail and her mane, I went with turquoise blue. So this is TB1, and I colored the whole thing in with that shade. And then for her mane and her tail, I didn't really want a blend so much as a textured hair effect. So I made like basically little lines of the TB3, which is the darker shade, to kind of look like bits of hair. And then I just blended it just a touch along the bottom of the tail and the ear and the horn to get that hair effect. And I colored her horn in with CT1, and then I highlighted the curves in it with my Jelly Roll metallic gold pen. And then of course, no unicorn would be complete without some sparkle. So I had to grab my Wink of Stella clear marker, and I sparkled up her mane and her tail, and then I did sparkle up her hooves and her nose, although you don't see that here. And there's a good look at that stamp set. It's really cute. It's got a lot of little extras, and I do have the matching dies, so I use the dies to cut out the unicorn. And then I stamp my happy birthday greeting. It is from the Simon Says Stamp It's Your Birthday stamp set. The pattern paper I'm using is the Doodle Bug Sun-Kissed 6x6 paper pad, and I use that sort of little rainbow color. And then I'm using an A2 top folding card. And then I also use the Lawn Fawn Simple Puffy Cloud Frames set to cut out some clouds and some cloud frames. Because, you know, my unicorn, or I should say Natalie's unicorn, is special, and it gets to be amongst the clouds. Oh, and then I use those little dies in the Bee Unicorn die set to cut out some hearts and stars from some shiny turquoise and fuchsia papers, and I've got some sequins at hand because I knew I was going to add some sequins. And there's the greeting I'm going to use in the middle, which is wishing you a magical day, and that also comes from the same stamp set. So my clouds, I did cut additional clouds. There are 3 sizes of clouds in that die set, and I cut some extras out of the pattern paper to go on the inside to match with the front. So I adhered the front panel down with some Be Creative tape, and I did speed this up quite a bit because I know how exciting it is to watch me tape paper down. So I got that stuck down, and then I used some of this lavender iridescent ribbon that I had on hand that I bought a long time ago from Michael's. I honestly don't know if they still have it, but I did think that tag needed a little extra bling. So, you know, I had to add some little sparkly ribbon on there. And then I adhered that down with mostly my ATG gun. And now I'm kind of deciding where the clouds are going to go around my unicorn. Now, I do realize that, you know, most unicorns are actually land-based, I guess, and Pegasus is the flying horse. But in this circumstance, Natalie's special unicorn gets to be amongst the clouds because she's a special unicorn and she's a special girl, and she gets to have individual superpowers that allow her to fly, and hence she is amongst the clouds. Anyway, I stuck some foam dots on the back of the unicorn to lift her up and, you know, make her the focal point of the card because she is obviously the most important thing. And then I am gluing down the birthday greeting there with my glue pen. And no card would be complete as far as I'm concerned without some sequins. So, and as well as those little cardstock hearts and stars, because unicorns absolutely have to have hearts and stars. I mean, it just wouldn't make sense if they didn't, right? So I'm taking my Ranger multi-medium matte adhesive, and I make a little pile on my craft sheet, and then I take my tweezers and I pick up the items and I dip it in the adhesive, and then I stick it back down where it's supposed to go on the card. That's generally the way I do it. It does seem to work pretty well. The tweezers work especially well with the cupped sequins, not so well with the flat items, but it does keep me from getting glue all over my fingers and then glue all over everything else as a result of that. And then I took my lime green stickles and I just finished off the middles of the sequins for a little extra sparkle. Then I used that same lime green stickles on the cloud that I had put the greeting on. And you can see the extra clouds that I cut out there from the pattern paper. And there are all 3 sizes shown there from that die set. So the one that I'm using the glue pen on right now is the largest size, and that's the frame. And so that die set cuts the frames, and then it cuts out middles too. So I used 2 middles. So the pattern paper is the smallest middle, and then the greeting is on the middle size, I believe. And so I'm gluing all those down in sort of a cute arrangement to bring that little cloud theme into the inside. And then, of course, I also have to add a heart, a star, and a sequin because, you know, it wouldn't make sense otherwise. And I did color in the magical word, which is like an outline word. I used my pink Wink of Stella on that because, you know, everything always needs some pink glitter. And there you go. That is the project for today. It was overall fairly simple. Just a little Spectrum Noir coloring and like fairly easy procedure with the distress inks on the tag, but overall I think the combination of elements really turned out well, and if I do say so myself, and it was a nice, really sweet, really colorful and blingy card for my niece, and I hope she loved it. So happy birthday, Natalie. Well, and thank you for spending some time with me today and for watching all the way to the end. You can always find more from me on my blog, blacksheep303.com. If you liked what you see, it'd be great if you give me a thumbs up. YouTube loves to see that. And if you want to see more from me, you can subscribe. I come out with YouTube tutorials regularly. As always, I would love to hear from you. If you have a thought, an idea, a comment, anything, please leave me a comment below. It would be great to get your feedback. Thanks. Have a great day.